Hi there, this is Pranay from DPS Diary. I hope you are doing great. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on your geographical location. So, in the previous session, we talked about Sysmon report. How do we actually read it? How to make sense of it? And then how do we suggest certain changes, right? So, in today's thing, this is something not widely talked on the internet. So, I will not. I don't think you can find any video or any no blog which talks about how do we read Sysmon report, then how do we suggest something to do change to the client or to your application team or whoever approves the changes, and then how do we see the change after doing the change at the configuration level in the Sysmon, right? So, that is what is the topic for today. Based on Sysmon report, we can actually do many many configuration changes, and that does help. But then, as I talked about earlier, you need to find a pattern. Only based on one Sysmon report, you cannot decide that this should be done, and that is not something optimally configured, right? So, we need to go through report for multiple days at multiple time, and then depending on that, then again you also need to consider the configurations in hand, whether it's at the operating system level, at the ASC level, and also certain things at the disk level, right? So, all these things have to be seen holistically, and then you can take a call that this has to be changed. Now, we should not do all change and in one go. We should do one change, then we should see how the impact is. Afterwards, then we should do progressive change. It should be sequential. Not all change should be done in one go, right. So, here I have one Sysmon report. So, I have got two Sysmon report for 2 different days at the same time. So, as I talked earlier, right, in the previous session, we should see the pattern, right. So, Sysmon report of one day of one particular time should be compared with the next Sysmon report of the same day and at the same time. Okay. So, that will give you understanding that after you made the change, right. So, how is it really impacting? Is it having positive impact? Is it having no impact, or is it having negative impact, right? That is also possible. So, let us see. So, let me start recording. Okay. So, let me zoom it a bit. Yeah, maybe now it will be easier. So, here you see we have 16.0 SP03, and then we have got 3 cores here. So, I am not going to talk much about how do we read, because we already talked about that, but just giving you some insight. So, it has got 3 cores. You see 6.7% usage, not very heavily used. IO is also there and all that. Now, let us see what we actually are looking for, right. So, cache search miss, if you see here, it is 1.4%, not too much of cache miss, but then we have to see how it actually translates when we go to the cache section, right. I mean the one where we have the cache details, right. So, if you go further, so yeah, data cache management, this is where we have to see. So, the first one data your cache search miss, and then the next one is cache miss, right. So, in the cache miss you have to see it is 0.5%, right. 99.5% it is very much able to find data in the memory, in the cache. 0.5% of data only it is not able to get from the memory, it has to go and read the disk. So, the in terms of per transaction, if you see 12.4, so not that much compared to 2500 it is able to find it. But then let us see where it is translating to. So, let us go and see. So, this will actually give you detail about all the cache. So, DBCC underscore cache we have, and you see there is no usage because this database, this cache is configured, but it is not being used. Now, let us go to default data cache. Okay. So, it has got 2K pool, right, and then it does not have any other pool, as you can see, and then let us go further. So, temp db underscore cache. So, now if you see here, cache miss is 7.5%. So, that 0.5% cache miss is actually happening from the temp db underscore cache. Now, temp db underscore cache, if it has got binding with the temp db database, that can actually impact your processing, because your data, whatever sorting will happen, or all the temporary thing will be happening in the tempdb. And if that tempdb is having binding with tempdb underscore cache, and that is having miss of 7.5%, that is actually not something which should be ignored. Okay. So now again it has got 2k pool. Now before we take any call, right, what we need to know is what is the configuration. So this is the one of the report, right. Now let us go and see the next report and how that look like. So let's go and find again cache miss. So it's 1.5, it was there before, here it's 1.9. Let's go and search for the next one. Okay. So cache management. Now the earlier one was having 0.5 and this one is having 0.7%. Now let us see again where is it going. So as we saw earlier, so it is in the tempdb underscore cache. So before it was 7 point something and now it is 9.6%, right. So that is actually something which should be investigated, should be checked, and then we should possibly suggest to client to make some changes. So either we can add memory into tempdb underscore cache, or we have to see whether we have memory on the host level, on the ASC level or no, right. So based on these two things, we can say that tempdb underscore cache is under configured. That is kind of sure, right. Now we will have to see next thing. So before we take any other call, we need to see the cache configuration, right. So let us open the cache configuration, what is there right now. So pre-change, right. So this is the cache configuration of this particular client, this particular server. Now what we have is, not sure if it is clearly visible, but it is little bit blurred, but you can see 7.6 GB is for default data cache, and tempdb underscore cache is having only 500 MB. Okay. And dbcc underscore cache is 90 MB, but then it is not getting used, so we will not talk about that. Now to drop a cache or to delete a cache, we will not take call just like that. It has to be really checked thoroughly. So adding things are pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward means it will not impact you that much, as much removing something will do. Okay. So we should be extra careful or extra cautious when we talk of removing something. No, so for example, now dbcc underscore cache, right, it is not being used right now, but then there is a possibility that it was running before and for some reason it has been stopped. So maybe we can again configure that, right. So that's why we will not take a call on the dbcc underscore cache. Now default data cache, so 7.6 GB. So let's hold on that for now. Now see, there is one thing which is very clear. 2 KB is there in the default data cache, but there is no 16 KB, right. That is one. Second thing is tempdb underscore cache is only 500 MB, and this also does not have 16 KB. So large IO will suffer, right. So as I talked in the previous session where we went through the cache and how do we configure and all that, right. So in that we mentioned, we just talked or we mentioned that the first pool size, right, that means that is the page size of your server. So 2K means this server is having the page size of 2K. Okay. So maximum you can go is 8 times. So 2K, so we can go for 16K is the max that we can do. Now so a couple of observation here. First is tempdb underscore cache and default data cache does not have 16K pool. So ideally we should be configuring 16K pool irrespective of checking the Sysmon report. That is the like maybe you can say best practice, right, as it is there in dbcc underscore cache. Second thing to see is, now if you see the tempdb underscore cache, it has got only one partition. So partitioning it should be multiple, so that you will not have any issue of spin lock. Even though we don't have any Sysmon, any spin lock right now in our cache, but then that is the best thing that we should suggest. So now what all things that we should suggest? First is to extend the tempdb underscore cache by some memory, we don't know how much, right. Default data cache, there is no change in terms of a partition. Only thing that we think is it should be having an additional pool, that is 16K. Now when you add 16K pool, should you take it from 2K pool or should you add an additional memory, right. So that is something that we have to see based on the configured based on the configured memory in ASE and based on the host level memory and how much is the free. This much is clear. Now, what we have? So, let us go to Sysmon report. Let us go to the detail right now. So, on the server we have 39 GB of memory, 16.5 GB is allocated to ASE and 8 GB is free. 8 GB memory is free. So, what we can suggest is, let us go back to that screenshot, right. So, what we can suggest is, let us double the memory of temp DB underscore cache, because it is very small, 500 MB. So, let us make it 1 GB, okay, that is one suggestion. And then we also have to add a 16K pool, right. Now, we have to see how much we should allocate to 16K and how much we should keep in 2K, okay, that is one. Second thing is to add 16K pool in the default data cache. Now, how much shall we allocate into 16K? Again, that is depending on the memory, right. There is no any hard and fixed number that this is what it should go. That depends on how much is there in Sysmon and how is it happening. So, based on the configured memory, right, how much you have there. So, 52,000 per second is what is happening transaction, and what is the configured value. Based on that, you can calculate how much it should be extended by, right. That is how we are going to do. So, roughly what we will do is, we will increase the temp DB underscore cache size. What we are saying is, we want to change from existing 500 MB to 1 GB. Now, we will have to see whether this 500 MB will go to 16K or will extend something in 2K and allocate something in 16K. Okay. Second thing to do change is number of partitions, as we talked about. So, from 1 to 4, this is a static change, this needs restart, keep that in mind. Okay. So, we will do these two change and then we will do restart. There was some issue with server, that is why we wanted to ensure that whatever change we are doing, it has been taken care, it has been reflected, right. Now, so these two changes are done. Now, when you add memory into temp DB underscore cache, by default all of that will go to your default pool, which is 2K, right. Okay. Next is, now this is done. Now, increase default data cache size by 1.5 GB. So, it was 7.6 GB. So, we will add 1.5 GB. So, that will make it 9.1 GB. Now, again we have to see how much of that will go to your 16K pool. Okay. Then again we are doing the addition of memory. So, this was having some issue in the server. So, there was some issue with the huge pages. In the upcoming session, we will also talk about how does huge pages impact your memory allocation. This is not something which is at the database level, but then there is one setting and then huge pages have to be configured on the server level, on the operating system level. Okay. So, this is done. Now, configure 16K pool. So, what we are doing now, so just mind you, when you add memory into the cache, by default it will go to default pool, which is your base pool. So, 2K in this particular case. Now, since we also have to allocate 16K pool, or we have to create 16K pool, we have to allocate certain memory in that, right. So, what we will do is, we will add a 16K pool of 500 MB in the default data cache. So, basically what will happen is, your 2K pool, right, it is not 6.6, I think, yeah, I think there is a mistake here. So, 500 MB will go to 16K, and what we did is 1.5 GB we have added, right. So, 1.5 GB means your 1 GB will still stay in 2K and 500 MB will go to 16K. Now, next we will be adding a 16K pool in the temp DB cache, and in that we will add 200 MB. So, that means out of 1 GB, 300 MB will go to 2K pool, which is your default pool. So, that will become 800 MB, and then 16K pool will remain 200 MB, and then finally we will do the restart. Just to give you on the static change and dynamic change, only change that we have here which is static is change the partitioning. Adding memory into the cache or creating a pool and allocating memory to that it is all dynamic. So, we have seen all that. So, now after the change, right, so we have done these all changes. Now, we should see the impact on the Sysmon report, right. So, let us go and see the report here. This is after running the changes, right. So, let us go to cache now. So, this has not changed, you saw 1.5, 1.7, but what we should see is the complete detail about the cache, which is having complete I mean at the cache level, right, data cache management. So, as you saw before, it was 0.5 or 0.7%, right. It was 0.7% here and it was 0.5% here. Yes. Now, this has come down to 0.1%. So, which means our changes that we proposed or which has been done is well accepted by optimizer, is well taken by optimizer. So, one win is done. Now, let us see the next change. So, how it should work out? Now, we have to go and see the tempdb underscore cache, right. So, tempdb underscore cache, tempdb underscore cache. Now, here you see the cache miss has come down to 3.1%. Now, we have done some changes, right. Now, it will not bring down your cache miss from 10% to immediately 0%, that will not happen. So, as we talked earlier, it has to be sequential, it has to be like progressive change, not everything you can add in one go and then you will know, because you can't really estimate all the data that will come and how much will be read from the queue or from the disk or from the memory. So, 3.1%. Now, we also added 16K pool in the tempdb underscore cache. So, you see it is very much used. So, our 3 changes have been really become fruitful. One is your adding memory into the tempdb underscore cache. Second thing is your 16K pool, right, these 2 things, and third thing partitioning. Okay, partitioning we should see. I do not think there was spin lock contention in this particular cache. Let me just check that. Let us check the spin lock on the overall cache level itself. Statistics, okay. Spin lock contention, it was not there, it was 0%. This is after the change. Let us see if it was there before. No, there was no spin lock contention, but as I said, this is the best practice we should follow. So, we should do the partitioning to all our cache to avoid any spin lock thing. Okay. So, now regarding your default data cache, right. So, default data cache we added memory and we also added 16K, and let us see if it is of any use, because this was not something which was causing issue to us, right, but we added part of best practice because you should have the large IO. So, in case something is required in the future, that will be useful. So, basically if you see here, so step 1, this has really been very effective. tempdb cache partitioning, this is part of best practice that we did. Okay. Then default data cache size, so this one we increased, but then it did not result anything right now, but then since we have free memory on the host, why do not we use it, right. And then restart AC, then configure 16K pool. So, default data cache 16K pool we did not see the usage, but then tempdb underscore cache we saw that 16K pool is very much used. So, these are the things that we take call based on Sysmon report, right. Now, we have another report that we have taken on the next day. So, similar thing we will check. So, that is how we approach Sysmon report, we understand it and then we suggest our client to do A, B, C or D changes, but then A change has to be smaller, means whatever change you are doing at the cache level or any level, it should not be at a large level, it should be at a small level and it should be relative to what configuration you have. I mean, if you are adding memory and if you have got 7.6 GB, you should not say that okay, you want to extend that by 50%, right, or 100%. So, again if your cache miss is very high and you see that cache is very under configured, then maybe you need to do that, but again that depends on the number of transactions, right. So, that is pretty much of it. Do let me know in case of any question that you have on the Sysmon or any other topic, right. Yeah, thank you very much.